Welcome to the Epic Kate podcast. This is a very exciting episode in that it is the second time that Patricia Herlevy has been on, and she's a fascinating lady with a lot of spiritual experiences. And I reached out to her specifically for this topic because it's such a heavy and real one. Pets and grief and being able to let them go and having a little glimpse on what it could be like on the other side for our beloved animals. And this episode just surprised me. It filled me with joy, and I know it's going to bring some comfort and some happiness to people watching it. So let's get into the episode. We had such an amazing conversation last time, and it's such an interesting and beautiful gift that you have of communicating with animals. And it was really interesting that we were chatting a bit before we started here, and you said that you had connected with my cat that passed that said hello last time.
Mm.
So you saw him kind of swish by in your imagination?
Yeah, what I get from him is that he is still in your house, well, in spirit,
Yeah.
but he's still walking around and he's still in the routine that he would normally have, except he's not in a physical body. But he's kind of in two places. Like he's in the
Oh,
world of spirit, but then he kind of goes back and forth.
wow. Is that really common for pets to do that?
Yeah, it actually is, especially like after they pass, because they can still feel the heaviness of the grief that the humans and other animals are feeling. Because his was a brother, the other cat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, is probably feeling some grief as well. So they come until they feel like they don't really need to come back.
Okay.
Some
So that
help us.
depends on the connection that they had to the people
Yeah,
and
I mean, some animals just take off and you never hear from them again, you know.
yeah.
But yeah.
I feel like we had experienced our grief, but I don't feel like we had like we had to hold on to him to keep him. You know what I mean? I feel
Yeah.
like I feel like we were able to say like we miss you. We had a wonderful time. The time that we got with you was wonderful, and you are free to do what you want to do now.
Yeah, and I think he feels that too. I mean, I get a sense that he does, but I think he also enjoyed. Well, he really liked being in that family. I feel like he thought it was too soon for him to die. Like he wasn't really ready yet. And he was having a good time. Like he was having a really good time. And he said it was just a fun house, like just fun. And of course, he said he was a trickster and that sort of thing. So,
That is the thing that hurts is that I let him down.
but he said you didn't let him down. It was just kind of a um, fluke. Oh God, I've got something in my eye. This is kind of weird. Um, he said it was just a fluke. Like it wasn't like there's nothing to, uh, there should be no guilt,
Yeah.
basically. So,
Like I haven't cried in a long, long time. It's not a thing that I don't think about him every day. Like
mm,
it was really sad for the time that it was really sad, and then it's been like kind of moving on with life.
yeah.
But talking about it now kind of reawakened that sense inside of me that, oh, if I had known how serious it was, we would have, even though we didn't have any money, we would have taken him to a vet. We would have gotten fancy food or something, like done something.
And he doesn't harbor any like bad feelings. He says he likes being in that light body. Like he says it's bouncy.
Ooh, that's
And you
fun.
can yeah, you can do kind of things like when he was a regular cat, he couldn't leap as high. So now he can like pounce. And then there's like these fake squirrels and these well, the spirit squirrels and spirit birds and things, and they let them like he can catch them because they're not in a physical body. So he can catch them and they play these games where um in fact, I'm seeing lots of cats doing this where they get to chase the bird and catch the bird and pretend like they're killing the bird, and the bird pretends to die but doesn't really because they're in spirit. And so they just kind of do this like It's kind of like a play thing that they do. It's weird. It's like
That
really
is that is so cool.
now they can like cats can fly, not like birds fly, but they can leap up and they can just be like suspended. And then he can come back and forth between realms. So he
Oh,
can, yeah. So he
so
thinks,
wow. Sorry, I'm interrupting. What do you mean realms? Like what does that mean?
well, like this is the physical realm,
Huh?
and then what people call heaven, which would be another realm, and then there's other ones in between that. And there's just
Like
a lot. They do a lot of traveling, like in the spirit body.
I listened to a podcast. I listened to lots of weird stuff. Whatever just sparks my interest in the moment. I'm like, yeah, let's check that one out. And there was somebody who was had gone through like a shamanic process inside like in spirit guides and stuff had been like leading them through it, and like they had been to all different realms, and they were like in a realm of like frog people, like everything was frogs. I think it might have been a different animal, but just saying like there's infinite realms and there's all different ones for all different animals, like that's so cool.
I don't want to do those shamanic journeys. I was learning how to do a shamanic journey when I was in my 30s, I think it was. I think it was my late 30s, and then I didn't continue with it. But now you're making it sound interesting again. So I know there's like a really angelic places where it's all very light and kind of feathery, and it's so ethereal that you can barely see anything. Like it's like you walk through clouds, like everything's like a cloud.
Is
It's not tangible and dense. It's just like you can just walk through. Like if there was a person there, you would just walk through them. It's a kind of a strange place.
is there like cat nirvana where they like they've done everything they need and then they're ready to go on and not come back?
Well, I mean, like Harry, the cat that I chow on a regular basis, the Maine Coon. Um, he's been telling me a lot about the spirit, the spirituality of cats, and he says they actually choose to come back. They don't have to come back. They choose to come back. And he says that they're teachers. And he emphasizes that they used to be the temple animals. Like he thinks that cats are superior to like everything else in his viewpoint because the Egyptians and people in India and all these different places would have these temple cats. In China, um, I don't know about Buddhist, but I'm seeing Buddhism. Um, but the cats were considered holy and seen as, I think the Egyptians have a god that's part cat, I think.
I think so, yeah, like a cat head human
Yeah.
body kind of
Yeah,
deal.
so there's this fascination with cats that's ancient. And the cats don't, oh, so if the cat like messes up, right, they're not going to feel any guilt. Like they don't have a concept of sin of doing anything bad. So they're in the moment. So if they did something bad in this moment, like 5 minutes later, they don't remember it. So when we get mad at them, they just think that we're just blowing our top. Like they just think that we're having some issues.
Like you need some help, clearly.
Right, right. So they don't see it as I just scratched them and I bit them and I hurt their feelings. Like they don't have like they have empathy, but it's not empathy as if you hurt somebody and then you feel bad that you hurt somebody.
Maybe they have more empathy towards like the wow, this person is really suffering and they really
Yeah.
need comfort.
Yeah. I need to come and teach this person. So
Mm,
Edgar Casey, apparently, the sleeping prophet from the United States, he was from the Virginia area and he was around, I can't remember when he was around. I think it might have been the 30s, 40s, 50s, or something like that. Well, he did some predictions about cats like 80 years ago and dogs like 80 years ago. And he said that cats come into our lives because we need them or because well, how do you phrase this? It's not a coincidence. It's not it's more synchronicity. So it's more spiritual. Yeah, so it's more it's how do I say? It's almost like they arrange it, they orchestrate it. So we think we go to a breeder and we get a cat, or we think we go to a shelter and get a cat, but actually we were guided to do that. And so there'll be a person where one day they'll just decide that they're going to get a cat. Like they've never had a cat before. They don't know why they want to get a cat. They start having dreams about cats, or they start seeing cats everywhere, or their friend says, "Hey, I just got a cat at the shelter." Or something happens and all this cat information, kind of like with me and channeling Harry. Um, it's just all these little pieces come in, right? And then the person goes to the shelter and then there's a particular cat that grabs their attention. And they may think, oh, I want to get the orange cat, but it's the black cat, right? It's the black cat that's they're feeling attracted to. It's the black cat that's kind of doing their magic on them almost. And so they end up taking that cat home, and then that cat ends up being like the perfect teacher. But they didn't even know they needed a teacher, right? So
Mm.
when they look back at that life with the cat, at the end of the cat's life, they go, oh, wow, I wouldn't have met my partner. I wouldn't have moved to that place. I wouldn't have been evicted by my landlord for having a cat. And then I ended up in this other place. But they lead all these events that happen where the person evolves in some way, or something happens to the person. Like maybe they're grieving, or maybe there's some part of their personality that they need to change and they haven't been able to change it through, say, psychotherapy or people in their lives, and they keep repeating the same patterns over and over again. And then a cat will come into their lives and then they'll finally get what that is through their relationship with the cat. The cat might be troublesome, right? The cat might be causing them problems every day, like maybe the cat has some bad behaviors and it's driving them crazy. But then when they realize it's them that has to change their own behavior, then the cat's behavior changes. And so
Mm.
the person is transformed, but they weren't expecting to get a cat, right? Now, some people want to get cats. They have cats all the time, right? And they go to the shelter and they get a cat. But those people are still getting the same thing, but it's not as dramatic
Mm.
because the other person's still questioning, like, well, why did I go to the shelter that day? Why did I get the cat? Why did I have the cat for 15 years or whatever it is? And the cat actually orchestrated all of that through the world of spirit.
Wow. This is such good stuff. I have so many thoughts bubbling around. I did get that change in my heart from having cats. It was like I used to yell at my computer when it didn't do what I wanted and when things would freeze or whatever. And like then my cats when I suddenly had seven cats at once because I had a pregnant fostered a pregnant mama and then all of them were just constant piles of cats everywhere.
Oh,
And
wow.
they would, be startled and be offended at my outbursts and like, oh, right. I'm not by myself here anymore. I have to like adjust my attitudes to not, bother these other beings I'm sharing this space with.
Right. And the other thing too that's really interesting about cats is their purr is between, I think, 40 and 100 hertz. And that is the range that actually heals your bones when you break a bone. So, yeah, so I broke a bone and well, a few years ago, 3 years ago. Was it 3 years ago? About 2 years ago. And I remembered a shaman telling me if you listen to cats purring, it will help your bones heal. And I go, oh, I wonder if they have cats purring on YouTube. And of course they do.
Of
So
course.
then every day I just put the headphones on and I think it was for about 30 minutes or something. I would just listen to these cats purring. And I didn't tell the doctor any of this, right? Because I could go to a doctor and say, well, I actually healed my bone by like listening to cats purring every day. It's just Pennsylvania. Doctors aren't that open-minded there, I mean, they weren't naturopaths. So I just did that and I went back and he x-rayed I had a fracture and he x-rayed, he goes, wow, that is like one of the cleanest breaks. Like that is like such a clean healing. And he was like really shocked by it.
Nice.
I mean, I didn't do a lot of icing. I didn't do all the other things I was supposed to do, but I did listen to that purring of cats and I used tuning forks. So, and the tuning fork was actually the same frequency as the cat purring.
Oh, yeah, that's so cool. I wanted to go back to Harry, the Cat You channel, and the temple cat thing. Like, what did temple cats do? Do you know?
Well, yeah, I kind of looked that up, like because I looked up Egypt and temple cats. They were the the portals. They were the gates. So they were like gatekeepers and portal keepers. So when people were meditating, you go into, well, sometimes you go through portals or you go through gates, depending on the kind of meditation that you do. And so they were the ones that led the people when they were in the meditative state through those gates and through those portals, but they were the guardians of it. So I also think that they protect people who are meditating, from other stuff coming in that they don't want. And then they may even be, and I don't know if this is true, but they may even be like spiritual teachers on the other side of the gate, but I don't have any, like, I haven't seen any information on that.
That's so cool. That kind of leads me well to my next other question, which was, um, is Carlson aware of Kira still being around? Are cats still on the fit mortal plane, interacting
Yeah,
with those in the
yeah,
spiritual?
yeah, they are because cats see spirits and they communicate with spirits. Yeah,
You
that's
lost
why
someone? Oh.
spiritual mediums and psychics and witches and all these shamans, a lot of them have cats.
Mm.
And the cats will often come in. I know Reiki practitioners who have said that their cats will come into the session when they're working with clients, and they'll either sit near the client or they'll go like maybe in a chair or under the massage table, but they will actually help with the healing.
Mm.
That's if the person wants the cat, because the people might be allergic to cats or afraid of cats or, and they're like, no, I don't want that. But people who like cats and things like that. And I've also seen like healers when they're doing a healing, like on a YouTube video, a cat will come and leap in their lap, and then the cat will like go against their body.
Hmm.
And I watched this one woman, I don't know if she was singing a yoik or what it was, but she was from Denmark, and she was doing a joint healing with this woman from Canada. And her cat came on her lap, and while she was singing, the cat was just kind of like up against her chest, like taking in the vibration of the voice, of the human voice, and probably exchanging it as well. And cats also like Reiki, and they like sound healing a lot. Like there's that one guy, oh, if I could find his YouTube channel, I'll send you the link. He actually does his crystal bowls, and then the cat bed is like right in the middle of the bowls, and the cat's purring along with the singing bowls.
Hmm.
So I think cats do want to play a bigger role in healing.
Mm.
So that's how they show their empathy. That's how they show their compassion, but it's not through this idea of them feeling guilt for like they don't have the concept of guilt. And even if people do YouTube videos of their animals experiencing shame, the animals, the behavioralists were saying that animals don't actually feel shame. What they're feeling is they're mirroring back what we're like. If we're being angry and we're projecting our anger onto them, that's actually not shame, it's fear.
That's what I
That's
was
saying,
gonna say. Yeah, it's like the fear of the repercussion. Like I know I did wrong and I'm gonna get hit, maybe.
or they don't know that they did wrong. That's the thing.
Oh.
They don't know that they did wrong because animals live in the moment. So if, even a dog, like if a dog did something at 6 in the morning and then the person comes home at 6 in the afternoon and they're going, shame on you, you did this, the animal doesn't remember what they did at 6 a.m.,
Mm.
right? They don't have that. They're not linear like we are. And they
Yes.
also live in a world of cause and effect. So they don't really, so people try to train an animal, like there's different training for dogs, and some of it's gentle and some of it's not. And so when people like punish a dog or try to shame them or whatever, it ends up doing is causing the animal to become nervous and
Hmm.
afraid of that person. So the dog will be obedient, but not because they thought they did something wrong or they felt shame. They'll be obedient because they're afraid that the human's going to hurt them.
Oh.
So if a human is coming at, even if, a human comes up to us angry, we feel like we're going to get hurt. We feel very vulnerable when we're being yelled at or, somebody's got their fist or, whatever. And so if an animal feels like they're going to get, hit or, which I think is abuse,
Mm.
if they're being yelled at or whatever, they're afraid. And so that emotion that they're putting out is not shame. And, I don't like those naughty, I mean, some of those videos are kind of funny, the naughty animal videos, but it's not funny when the human's being kind of like punitive toward the animal. That kind of really disturbs me
It's kind
because It's just making the animal anxious and nervous and scared.
It's kind of like with a like my 2.5-year-old. It's like he's doing the best he can. It's their
Right.
animals are a lot, especially like dogs, are very similar in like comprehension to a 2-year-old,
Right.
right?
Well, yeah, they don't get past age 7, basically.
Wow.
Uh, Of the human, like the human development of age 7 is about as far as an animal, like not animal, but a dog. They say that cat can get to the maturity of a human that's 33 years old or older.
How?
The dog's more like 7. Yeah, I haven't lived with a lot of cats, so I can't really say much about that, but I have lived with dogs, and they do tend to be very childlike. Even when they're seniors, they're still trying to be puppies.
Yeah.
And well, it's kind to be a puppy when you've got arthritis and you're almost blind and you know you're just struggling along. And they'll injure themselves because they try to do something they could do when they were a puppy, and then they'll, like, I don't know, pull a muscle or something. Kind of like when you see older people, trying to do something, they're not in good shape, and then they try to do something they did when they were a teenager, and then they end up like pulling a hamstring or something.
So that's
So
actually, would you say that that's I don't want to use the word argument, but basically argument for it being the kind thing to put an animal down when they're just not enjoying their life enough and their body's hurting and they're just not in a good place anymore.
depends on the animal. So there's a an animal communicator from South Africa, Anna, and I can't pronounce her name. I think it's Britannia or Brentanya, or I can't pronounce her last name. It's a South African name. She does podcasts, and she was talking about euthanasia and animals, and from an animal communicator's point of view. And she says that sometimes it really is the best thing that you can do for the animal, but it's also good to ask the animal.
Mm,
Like a lot of times we just do something to an animal, we don't ask their permission or we don't ask them what they want. And most people don't know how to do that. But we're developing as humans telepathy. Yeah, we're developing that. And people know intuitively, like if they were to put their hands maybe where the heart area is of the animal and just kind of meditate with the animal, they would get an answer of a yes or a no, but they have to remove their emotions out of the way. They have to get to that space of that sort of nothingness space, that void, and then to ask the question while putting their hands on the animal, and then the first answer that comes up without rationalization is the true answer, but then once the brain comes in and the ego comes in, they'll start saying yeah but and then you don't have the answer anymore. Another thing is to, if people work with dreams, to ask in their dream what the animal wants, to ask the animal spirit to meet them in a dream space and to tell them what they want. So that's another thing, but then you got to trust your intuition because you don't want to make the wrong decision, right? So that's where people get hung up. But I think deep down inside they know. I just don't like when people do it because it's more convenient for them. Like, the humans want to get on with their life. And so they go, oh, my animal's old. I'm going to go put my animal down.
oof.
That I don't like that. If there's still some life left in the animal, then, and they're not in severe pain and they're able to eat and they're still
Yeah.
walking, not, they're able to go to the bathroom on their own. And sometimes people want to also prevent all the pain that would be caused by cancer or something. So they may put the animal down before the animal actually becomes severely ill. And I guess each person needs to make their own decision on that. But I don't get that animals feel bad about it. There may be some animals that will say, I still had a little bit of life left. There were still some things I wanted to do, but they don't blame the human. And they kind of understand us from a higher perspective. So they kind of see us as works in progress. And animals, I believe animals are more evolved than we are. Like they're
Mm,
more conditionally loving, they're very forgiving. It's us humans that can't forgive.
mm,
And we project our own unforgiveness onto ourselves, and then we say that the animals feel that way about us. So we might do something really bad and we feel horrible about it, but that's us not forgiving ourselves. And then we say, oh, the animal didn't forgive me, but we don't really know that because we're not the animal.
yeah.
And they come from a higher perspective. That's why I love animal communication, because I'm speaking with these beings that are way more advanced than I am.
So like humans, it's the grand amnesia. Like we leave a part of we're our big souls up there, and a
Our
little
soul is up there.
our little chunk of our soul is here, and then
Mhm.
we go to it. But do animals like have their whole soul with them, or are they also separate from their big soul?
I think everything's separate from their big soul because I think when you go back, when everything goes back to the big soul, then you have that unity consciousness where everything is
Right.
connected. And I think the oversoul is protecting us as we're on this earth plane. And so we have a cord, I believe. I know in
Mm-hmm.
shamanism they said that you have a cord to that other part. And if that cord were to break, so they always tell shamans, when you're doing journeying work, be very careful that that cord doesn't break because then you're dead. You're physically dead because that cord is basically between that higher power and you on this physical plane. And once that cord breaks, then the physical body doesn't have that um animation, I guess you could say, because the our soul animates our physical body. And then some people will say, like some spiritual teachers saying that we're actually a physical body inside a soul and not a soul inside a physical body. So then it gets really deep, right?
Yeah, I love it.
Sorry about that one, but yeah.
So
He's such
like,
a sweet cat. I really liked talking to him, but it was weird when he came to me because he just popped into my head one day and I'm like, who are you? You know? And I was actually looking up Maine Coon cats. So before he even came in, I was putting my class together and I wanted to learn about cat breeds. Because I go, okay, because if people are going to get a cat, I need to know what kind of cats people want to get. And so I was looking up cat breeds and I was, of course, looking at Bengal and all these different cats from Egypt and then the Maine Coon cat and also the Norwegian forest cat. Is it the Norwegian forest cat or Norwegian mountain cat? Whatever it is, they look like Maine Coons. And those two kind of came in really strong. I go, oh, this is a really interesting cat. And then the next thing I know, I had this big orange cat like talking to me. Yeah. So he came to me and he started talking to me. And I have to say, I didn't know much about cats when I started the conversations. And that's why I ask these questions that sound kind of ignorant. You know, and then he goes, well, like you should know about this. Why don't you know about this? Because cats are very proud of themselves. And it's not just because of the Leo thing. I mean, they're very proud creatures. They're very dignified. And they don't like anything that makes them feel undignified. So when people don't clean out the litter box, for one thing, that really disturbs them. So there are people like on social media and they'll say their cat ran away and they'll go to animal communicators and they'll ask, like, where's my cat? And we know the truth is that the cat doesn't want to come back for certain households because they're or they don't get to be on the furniture or there's something that they want like they want to go on a perch like get up high and be able to look down and so people make sure that the cats like they'll just go get down from there things like that. um if that happens a lot then the cats will kind of give up and they'll go somewhere else.
mm,
A lot of them will stay because they're very committed to why they're there, like they want to help somebody. So say somebody has, I don't know, autism, low on the spectrum, and they're having a hard time communicating and they're having a hard time, um, you know, figuring things out in the world. Like how do I function in this world? And so then a cat will come and the cat will commit themselves to this person. And the person's going to get mad on some days and they're going to act out. And the cat is going to remain calm and patient because they've chosen to work with that particular soul. But
mm,
if it's just like a family situation and people are coming and going and they're forgetting to feed the cat on time and there's just a lot of like chaos in the house and the people are not getting the spiritual lesson or they're not getting what the cat came for, then the cats will oftentimes just go somewhere else, and then maybe they'll try again with maybe maybe they incarnate, right? So they might come back again in those people's lives or not. But if they get really frustrated and they don't feel like they're making a difference and they don't see any progress and they're not being treated with respect, they'll leave.
mm,
And then, or they'll put themselves in a really tough position, like they'll be born in a mill, like a cat mill type situation or something, and then a rescuer will come and save them, and then they become like a poster child for a cause, and then they open people's hearts. because they'll go,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I can't believe this cat went through this. And then people will um, donate money to like a rescue, or they'll go, do things for animals, or they'll just open their heart in general. So sometimes animals put themselves in harm's way just so that we will open our hearts. And sometimes they don't live very long either. Like they have a very short life.
Yeah, like Kira, he was only 3.
Really? Oh, wow. That's really young.
Yeah,
Well, yeah. So then you just kind of search for meaning in it,
yeah.
like journaling or
I
just
mean,
talking. You can still talk.
one bit of meaning that I got out of it was of I need to appreciate Carlson so much more. I need to I when I just waited and waited and waited for him to come home because he's an outdoor cat that comes inside when he feels like it.
Oh,
And I just like as soon as he came home, I was like, I love you so much. I'm sorry. I want to
yeah.
appreciate every moment I get with you.
Well, that's nice. He's probably like, okay, mom.
I'm not but I cats are so good at teaching that lesson of consent. I don't hold him longer than he wants to be there. I just appreciate whatever I can get.
Right, they have boundaries. I mean, dogs have boundaries too, but
Mm.
dogs are such pleasers. That's the difference between cats and dogs.
Yeah.
Dogs pleasers, and dogs are so afraid of being abandoned because they are pack animals. And so their biggest fear is that if you are showing a certain body language or your tone of your voice, anything that might trigger abandonment, then they will well, they'll get really scared for one thing, but they'll just keep trying to please you, and they'll bend themselves over backwards. They'll become like these pretzels of, being a people pleaser. But at some point, they too get tired of being in certain situations. I mean, if they're being yelled at all the time, if they're being abused physically or emotionally or psychologically, they will eventually just get themselves out of that situation.
Mm.
They'll run away, um, yeah, I mean, I even see this like a vision of a dog like losing his collar, like, running away from home and like figuring out, like rubbing on the ground and trying to get the collar to fall off just so that if he gets found, he's not going to have to go back to the same place. So, yeah, so animals will, sometimes they run away because they're in heat, or they smell another animal in heat. And other times they'll run away because they're just curious. Like they want to find out what's out there, especially if they're an indoor cat and they've never been outside before, or a dog that doesn't get to go for walks enough. They'll run away to entertain themselves. But then there's the ones that will run away because they just don't like their situation. It's very oppressive, and they'll take their chances of going somewhere else. And they'll orchestrate going into somebody else's life. And
Mm.
they may have picked more than one or two souls in a lifetime. So they might have orchestrated, and I think they do orchestrate being in a family, not working out, going to a rescue, getting adopted again, and orchestrating at the very timing. This is what's so incredible. The very timing is when they come into people's lives. So somebody could have just gone through a divorce,
Oh.
right? And so the animal, the cat or the dog comes into their life just at that point. And then they get strong enough and they're ready to go on with their life. And then the animal will move on to somebody else. It might be another family member. It might be like, say they have a kid that grows up during that time, and now the kid's an adult, and the kid as an adult decides to take that pet with them.
Mm.
So originally come to his mother, but now that dog or that cat is going to leave with this kid and then have that relationship. And then the kid ends up getting a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and then now those souls are in that life as well. Or you get the animals that are like a one person animal, and it doesn't matter who else is there. It's just that one person is who they have the relationship with. And
Mm.
they're very guarding of that person. So you see it with a lot of dogs that are very individual oriented, like a Chow or German Shepherd, where they really have that one person and they'll protect that person to their death. I mean, they will do whatever they can if they
Mm.
feel like that person's being threatened. But the rest of the family won't matter as much, or the rest of that household won't matter as much. It'll be just that one person that they're focused on. And then there'll be the ones that want the whole family, like the whole pack. Like they'll just have a special relationship with every person in that situation. So with you, your cat, Carlson will have one relationship with you, one with your husband, and then different relationships with each of the kids um, or any other pets that you have.
Yeah,
And
he's much
that's
more of our wild boy. He is not really, but he's so calm when the kids pull ticks off of him.
ticks.
Yeah. Oh, I hate those things. I wanted to share this thing. Like my uncle Steve, he never had got married or had kids. His dogs were his babies. Um,
Mhm.
and he always would say, "If dogs don't go to heaven, I'm not going."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he rescued a dog that was he knew it a dog was being abused and he stole that dog and he took it home and I just love that so much about him.
Right. Yeah. No, there are a lot of people. Yeah, no, sometimes I get really upset when because as an animal communicator, there's a lot of times where, I haven't had any clients like this, but I'll be walking down the street and somebody will walk by with their dog and I'll get disgruntled messages coming from an animal about they'll be looking at me like, save me. Like there'll just be a look in their eyes, or please talk to this person. And I actually ethically cannot do that. Like, I am not able to, as a animal communicator and Reiki practitioner, I am not able to get in between the soul contracts of other beings without the permission of, well, obviously the dogs give me permission, but since he's bonded with, that human is his guardian, I have to have permission from that guardian to do any kind of animal communication or Reiki. But what I can do is send out blanket Reiki, just like a general Reiki every morning where anybody who wants to receive it will receive it. But I'm not going specifically to any individual unless somebody specifically says to me, will you send me Reiki? And then I'll go, okay, I have your permission. So I will directly send you Reiki. Otherwise, I send it indirectly. So those animals can still get the Reiki if they're open to it. And so I can send it to a whole shelter
Mm.
even though and I do that kind of as a blanket, like I don't just send it to any specific animal at a shelter because then I'd have to have permission from the shelter manager, right? And the shelter manager may not believe in Reiki or animal communication and get very upset that I would even ask for it. And I have actually had that happen with zoos where I have asked if I could come in and do animal communication and I have gotten um, polite rejections sometimes, and other times like in Pittsburgh Zoo the woman just hung up on me,
Oh,
like almost like we only practice evidence-based medicine kind of like
yeah.
that's not science, that's not zoology.
So
That
the thing about permission and oh, I had it and I lost it. Oh yes. The dog when the dog is saying, "Help me," but you're like you have a soul contract. So dogs also forget their soul contracts.
no, I think sometimes it might be overwhelming for them. Like it's kind of like us. We come in here and we say, okay, I'm gonna go through a divorce. I'm gonna go through abuse. I'm gonna go through,
I
like
can
some,
handle it. What's the
yeah, some
worst
people,
that could
well,
happen?
because you're in your higher self, right? In your higher self, it looks like a piece of cake, right? And then you come onto the earth plane and you forget that you made that contract. Like, the people that get cancer and then they have the near-death experience and then they realize, oh yeah, I was supposed to be a spiritual teacher. Right. And so then from that spiritual teacher point of view, they understand why they got the cancer and why they went through the divorce and why they lost a child or whatever it is, this most painful thing and when they're going through it, they're praying to God to say, hey, can you just release me from this? Because it's so painful. So for animals, they could come in and, say like, that particular animal, there was one woman, she just was smoking like in the dog's face and not letting the dog, have like she was kind of yanking on the leash and all these kinds of
Oh,
things miserable for a dog. And so the dog had seen that ahead of time, right? The soul of the dog had seen the soul of this woman go, okay, this woman's very troubled, but I'm going to go in and I'm going to help her. But then in the reality of the situation, the dog realizes they can't help that person because that person is too bitter, too resentful, got way too much baggage. And so it's almost like it's a really heroic, a beautiful idea of them wanting to come in and do that. But then when they get in there, they realize that the other soul doesn't even remember the soul contract or doesn't want to honor it. So there are some people that are just, and some animals that are just so far gone.
mm,
As like when you get an animal that's completely shut down, sometimes you're able to get a really good communicator, a really good animal behaviorist, or somebody in there to help that animal come out of the shutdown. Other times they just end up getting euthanized because they're never going to come out of that. They've just been through too much where it's like a nervous breakdown where they just crack, and then other times you'll have a shutdown animal and then people will work with them and the animal will come back and become like this really great pet. So it just kind of depends on like their strength and their will to keep going. Because
Oh.
they also know what the spirit world is like. They do remember the spirit world, and a lot of them just want to return to it. So it's
Mm.
like, well, it was much easier in the spirit world because I didn't have to be in these harsh situations. And animals right now are in very harsh situations, whether you're talking about a wild animal or a domestic animal. They're, some species are considering not even staying, you know,
Oh.
at, at least in this third dimension, because it's just gotten hard. And then the culprit ends up, and I don't mean to be harsh against humans, but the culprit usually ends up being humans. It's not like the antelopes blaming lions or, because they've always had this agreement that, okay, yeah, the lions hunt us, they eat us. That's just life, right? But humans do more than that. I do a lot of advocacy, and humans are either really loving and caring to animals and very helpful for them, or just the opposite. There really isn't really a middle ground. But more and more people are waking up, and a lot of children are the best animal advocates out there
Mm.
because children are coming from a place of innocence and they're just asking, like, why? How children don't say, well, why do you do that? Why is that way? And, adults kind of cringe because they don't want to answer those questions because you have to go really deep to answer that. You're like, well, why are we doing that? And so kids are really what's going to be the saving grace for animals because kids are coming from that place of innocence um, and children, as long as they're taught to respect and love animals. I've seen some kids being kind of like too rough on animals, and I have to just gently say to the kids, that's not really nice to do that to that dog or the cat or whatever because they deserve better treatment. Or I'll ask them, would you like it if somebody did that to you?
Yeah.
You know? And so
Yeah.
you don't have to be mean and make the kid feel bad or shame them or anything, but you do have to sort of point out like that's not appropriate behavior because kids don't know any better sometimes, like I think there's a part of the kid that is the innocent, gentle, there's those kids, and then there's the kids who are a little bit rougher, they might be more athletic, they might have more energy. Like they may just be full of energy and they don't know how to direct their energy, but it's up to adults really to teach kids how to do that,
Yeah, for
you
sure.
know, because they don't know. I mean, if there's no guidance, but I don't believe in like, for animals and humans, I don't believe in like punishment. I,
Mm.
I also don't believe you just talk to them. I mean, you have to kind of come up with some, even if it's a parable or a story or something, like the Native Americans have all those animal stories, which are basically for both adults and children they're moral stories, they're morality, like this is how we behave in our society, or this is what happens if we don't behave this way. They're more about cooperation and collaboration and how you live in peace with other humans. Like if you do this, this is what's going to happen. Right. And so they use stories. They don't really, you don't really hear a lot of like, I don't know. I haven't raised children, but I know with animals, I know that punishing them isn't like helpful.
Mm.
That's why they say use positive reinforcement and definitely train, like dogs need to be trained because otherwise they don't know how to act in our world,
Mm.
right? Used. And then they get in trouble and they end up at a shelter, but they didn't know what they did wrong because they need to know certain obedience, like, well, you don't jump on people, because you could hurt them, and you don't bite people. So,
Yeah.
puppies will bite. So you have to train them not to bite when they're adults. Like you have to train them as puppies that, this is not appropriate because otherwise they get their big teeth and then they go and bite somebody. And so a lot of animals end up in shelters because they weren't taught, this is how you have to be with humans, right? If you're going to be with other dogs, then you'll have your own behavior. The mother dog will teach them. The other dogs will teach them. So they might nip at them or they might do something else to get them to be in line with the pack. And so when the dog goes from being a puppy with a mother, now the mother's not there to do all the corrections. Now the human has to, um, correct the dog, but not in a way that's mean, not in a way that's going to hurt them,
Mm.
but in a way that they can understand. Because you want them to respect you. You don't want them to be afraid of you.
Yeah.
Because again, they'll be obedient out of fear or respect, but I'd rather a dog respect and love me rather than just be afraid of me and only do things because they're afraid.
I mean, it's the same, exact same with children, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly
I
the
mean,
same.
yeah, I know I grew up with the more brutal kind of
Oof. Yeah.
law.
I was spanked too.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
And I
that's
guess
that's the
never,
tools that they knew. It's like because I
right.
said so and
Yeah, what it leads to is anxiety and depression. But um,
definitely
you know,
doesn't form any lasting bonds.
no, no, because you're going from a place of really trusting somebody to that person that you trust who's supposed to love you, hurting you. And it's a very confusing message. I mean, it is for humans. Could you imagine what it is for animals? Because they're not even the same species.
Mm,
And but animals are wise and they'll only put up with so much.
mhm,
And some of them have thicker skin than others. Some of them will put up with a lot more. And then you see these stories of like pit bulls, especially in the United States and probably in Europe as well, where they're under these really brutal situations. They might come from a puppy mill, they might have been bred for fighting, or, they come from this just rough or street life, like they were strays. And you're thinking, how do they survive that? And then you'll see them in a new family and they're just playing and they're doing zoomies and they're happy and they're affectionate. And it's really kind of you have to think this is a really tough dog. I mean, mentally. Or the cat dog is another dog that I guess doesn't show pain, even when they're in pain. And, you get the dogs that were meant to be like, I don't know, war dogs or police dogs or, dogs that are they have to be really tough, guard dogs. Although I would not want to be a guard dog. That'd be a horrible life.
Oof,
But they're not allowed, they're stoic, right? They don't show pain. But the problem with that is they could have cancer and you wouldn't even know it.
oof.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just remembered a thing I read about the dogs who are looking for survivors at 9/11.
Mm.
They had to stage fake rescues where the people pretended to be trapped because they were
Oh,
getting so depressed of only finding corpses and not actually being able to save anyone.
yeah, that'd be tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no reward. You know,
Yeah.
we all like rewards. Like if you're gonna do something, you want to, dogs want to be rewarded, right? So when they sit, you give them a treat, right? You give them a cookie, or if you ask them to do something, even you see them go through the agility courses and the races and stuff, they always get like a cookie or a toy at the end, right? So they're waiting for that reward. But if you were to get somebody out of the rubble and they're dead, there's no reward in that.
Oh,
Unless the only thing, they would get is maybe, oh, good dog or, whatever. But what they're going to pick up is just extreme sadness. And, because they're picking up everything that we're feeling, but they're also feeling things.
yeah.
And,
That's where the animal communicators come in to help these ones with this PTSD and this depression of not being able to fill their function.
right. And here's the thing with a lot of Reiki practitioners, including me and animal communicators, is a lot of us have PTSD and
Mm,
a lot of us have anxiety disorder and depression. And so we have to put that aside while we're working with the animals so that we're not getting our own projections in there. But at the same time, we are so empathetic
mm,
I've worked with a lot of animals with separation anxiety and a lot of fear and things like that because I know, I'm not saying that I've loved the life that I've had because I don't, but at the same time, I've got that in my palette of emotions. It's like, oh, I know what that feels like. You know,
mm,
I and I know what it feels like to feel destitute because I've been homeless. So, and so it's weird because you got the homeless people and then you got the homeless animals. Right. And there's got to be some sort of community that could come together, like where, both the homeless people and the homeless animals could be homed and maybe together in the same community.
mm,
Because there's a healing that can happen between the animals and the humans that have both been through those situations because they understand. And there are a lot of homeless people who have dogs, or there was one guy in England who had a cat. He was like a street musician on it. There was a movie, I think it was called A Cat Named Bob or something and the cat's no longer alive, the guy is, but he was a drug addict and he was on the streets and he had this cat. And the cat was there it was like this orange cat. So the cat was there for his whole rehab, everything that he went through. And he actually found the cat as a stray. So the cat was homeless and he was homeless and they came together and they got into charity housing And then he went into rehab and the whole thing. And he was a street musician, so he was making his money by playing on the street, and the cat would be with him. And of course, the cat would get attention. And so people would put money in the hat because the cat would be like on the guy's shoulder and stuff while he's playing guitar and all the rest of it. It's like a really beautiful story of like redemption
Mm.
because the man was really troubled. And I can't remember why he started doing drugs or whatever, but something had happened to him before. And then he ended up becoming, I think he became homeless because he was doing drugs. And then this cat came to him, and I think he tried to shoo the cat away or something. And the cat was really insistent. I can't remember. There's a movie on it.
The
It
cat
was,
distribution system has been done.
yeah. So, anyways, yeah. So then the cat stayed with him until he died. But, but the cat went through all this, like, had so much patience with this guy.
Hmm.
And they did a movie with actors, like
Hmm.
sort of a biopic movie. And I think there was also like a little documentary too on the real guy and the real cat. But yeah, he would be like on the streets. I think it was London. And this was a while ago. This is probably like 2012, 2013, around that time. And I remember somebody sending me that, and I just cried through the whole movie. I
Oh,
watched the whole. And that was before I became an animal communicator, but I kind of like, again, it was an orange cat. There's been a lot of orange cats kind of coming in, throughout my life, that there's something about that orange cat personality. It's kind of a different cat. I mean, I think they all do. I think they get the black cat personality, you got the orange cat personality, you got the tabbies, you've got the fancy cats, you know, and but I don't think the cat has a lot of people, the mistake they make when they're getting a pet is they think they have to get the fanciest cat out there. They think they have to buy a designer cat. And that's ego. That's all ego. You just need a cat, right? You just need a cat. The one that comes into your life is the right one. So people will go, well, should I get the Persian or should I get the Bengal? And then and when I was putting my class together, I was thinking about that because I was mentioning different cat breeds and different dog breeds. And then I was thinking, just go to a shelter and just get the cat that calls to you, just help an animal in need. Don't have to go to and you don't even know when you go to a breeder if you're getting a legit like breeding situation or if you're getting a cat that's going to have genetic disorders. I mean, and
with
so they end up
dogs,
thousands.
you're much more likely to have health issues with purebreds because they've been bred to the point that they are going to have health issues based on the aspects they wanted to get.
Right. Yeah,
Oh,
flat face dog. Maybe they want the eyes to be a certain way on the cat face. Or, I mean, there's those cats that look like dolls. They have like little doll eyes, like really big kind of doll eyes.
mhm.
But what did you have to do? Like, how much breeding did you have to do? Or the Bengal, which is a really beautiful cat, but they had to go through a lot of different mixing and matching and playing with genes and stuff to come up with that cat. Whereas some cats are more
Humans are
ancient.
so weird, man.
Yeah, and so humans want cats that, and I don't know if it's like there was actually a couple that went into a cat shelter and they wanted a cat that would match their couch because they'd just done some interior decorating and because they had a new couch, they wanted to declaw the cat. And I said to the shelter, please don't let these people adopt that cat. That cat's going to be miserable. And there was this cute calico with like a moon face, and she was really little, and they wanted her because I don't know. I
And then
go,
the
no.
same people get
She
rid of
still
the
had
pet,
claws. She still had claws, so they would have removed her claws.
and then the same people get rid of the animal when they change couches.
Or they move to a new home. They decide that they either don't maybe, oh, well, we already had this cat for like 10 years, so we're going to take the cat to the shelter because we want to get a puppy. And we don't know if the puppy will get along with the cat, so we'll just get rid of the cat who's been loyal to us and with us the whole time because we want a puppy because we want our kids to learn about puppies. It's like, well, you've just taught your kids some horrible values. You've just taught your kids that animals are disposable and you can just get rid of them at any whim,
What
which kids,
about what about the people who are deeply spiritual, deeply in tune with their animals? I'm thinking of a specific person actually. She had a very traumatic time in Sweden.
Mhm.
There's rules like you once they determine that an animal is sick enough, they have to be put down. They're not allowed to go home
Yeah,
and
they don't
just
have
they're not allowed to die at home because that would be considered abusive.
really.
They're Sweden is considering it the most humane thing. Of once they've determined vet has determined that they are sick enough, they just need to be put down.
Person be with the animal while they're getting the
I don't
injection.
think so.
That's awful.
Isn't it? So I have a
That,
friend
that's
who,
that's again that soul bond being interfered with by
yeah. So
pulling
I
away the.
have a friend who had to go through that. She was deeply connected, deeply loved her dog, and was not able to get the death that she wanted. And it's so traumatic for her, even still.
Yeah, we don't have that here. We can do hospice care here. And
Yeah.
that's really big with a lot of people that are spiritual, that they'll do the hospice care for their animals. In fact, the dog that I fostered, he was adopted and he got cancer. I think it was like 3 years into his adoption, or maybe it was, yeah, 3 years into it, I think, 3 or 4 years. It was 3 years, 3 years into the adoption. And she said, well, when it comes to the end, I'm going to do hospice care for him.
Mm,
So she did hospice care for him, and I'm not sure if she had the vet come over to the house and do the euthanasia or if they went there, but she would not have left him. She would have been there the whole time. And
mm,
so in the United States, we're allowed to do that. I mean, at
yeah.
least we
So,
can. I don't know what laws will change in the future, but right now we can do hospice care, and we can also have there are vets that will come to your house and do the euthanasia in someone's house.
mm,
I That's what I would do. I
that's
mean,
beautiful.
it's scary to take them to the vet clinic, right? Especially if they were
Yeah.
scared of it and then they're going
Bad
to die.
enough.
It's
Yeah.
like us dying in a hospital. Like, who wants to die in a hospital? Most people
Yeah,
are in a
really.
hospital.
But to go back to that, like what would you say to people who don't who are deeply spiritual and who don't get that experience, that they don't get the good death with this heart animal of theirs?
Go hire a spiritual medium or an animal communicator that does spiritual mediumship and get that closure through that. Or if they can do it on their own, if they can just do a ceremony on their own, or work with a shaman, then have that closure. And, you can do the Ho'oponopono, the Hawaiian forgiveness prayer, to the animal and, explain to the animal, like, I wanted to be there, I would have been there. And, or they could visualize it the way they wanted it to be. So just keep visualizing as that is what actually happened rather than what really happened. So sort of superimpose that, and then the animal will get the message of, yeah, this is the way that I would have done it if I had. And I think also the animals know on on some level that they didn't, that it's not the human. Um, they know because they can feel the emotions from the human, so they would feel her sadness and her regret and like all the anger and stuff that she felt. They would have picked up on that telepathically, so they would understand that she tried to do that but
Mm,
wasn't able to because of some law. So they do understand that. But for herself to have closure, then she could do some kind of ceremony or, again, a spiritual medium where they could talk to the animal, with her. And so she could get that closure, or a shaman or somebody that can bring her healing for her grief because the animal's fine.
mm,
But she's carrying that weight of guilt, which is going to cause physical problems if she doesn't find a way to release that and also to forgive herself because the circumstances were beyond, because you said there was a loss, so there was nothing she could have done.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm sorry that it's like that in Sweden. That's tough, but
Mm.
there's probably other countries that are probably like that as well.
We've got to learn that lesson from cats of I don't feel shame and guilt because it is what it is. I did what I did.
Right. Yeah. Only we could live in the moment because that's how they do it.
Mm,
They live in, I mean, they have memories so they can remember things. And I don't know how PTSD is with animals. You'd have to look it up, like from the animal behaviorist point of view and the brain science on animals. I don't know if they have flashbacks or not. I mean, I think us humans would assume that they do, but I don't know if they do with PTSD. I don't know what PTSD is for animals. I don't know if it's a feeling that they get that triggers it, or if they have actual visual memories of something happening, or if it's a voice that they remember and somebody has the same voice, or there's a certain circumstance that happens again, like it repeats itself, and then that reminds them of something of the past. And so they start trembling and, going into anxiety. So I don't really know how PTSD works on an animal, but I know how it works on a human. It's just, I would be curious to see what the animal, the psychologist, the animal psychologist, I would be curious of what they say the animal's going through with PTSD
Mm.
or or if they remember, I think that they do remember their past lives, but not like we remember them.
Mm.
But I can't, I'm not an animal, so I really don't know. But I get a feeling from talking to certain animals because somebody will say, "Is this my cat being reincarnated from my childhood cat?" And I'll get a yes from the animal. I'll get a yes. But I don't know beyond that. Like, I don't know how deep it goes and
Mm.
how much the animal remembers or why they came back. Or, I mean, usually you have to do the animal communication session. The animal does all the talking and says what's going on. And, I just have to stay out of the way. Like I have to keep my ego out of the way. That's the hardest part is my
Mm.
ego wants to jump in and say, hey, yeah, but. And sometimes it's really painful to hear what animals are saying.
Mm.
And I just want to start crying because they'll be talking about, they'll be showing me where they came from. Like if they were like a street dog or whatever, or they'll remember, or they will have some memories because they'll show some memories and they'll say, yeah, this person kicked me or whatever, but they don't hold on to it. But we get emotional because we're saying, oh, that's so painful. I can't, like it hurts us to like see that. But for them, it's almost like they're detached from it.
Mm.
Like, because they go, okay, yeah, I went through this rescue thing, and they're so heroic because I mean, to have to go to a shelter and be with all those other dogs that are suffering, and they're so empathic, so they're listening to what all the other dogs are saying. They're
Mm.
hearing all the stories of the other dogs. Also, if you want animals that collect stories, you go to a zoo, and the zoo animals will all know everybody else's business. The elephant knows what's going on with the giraffe, and it's weird to walk through a zoo as an animal communicator because there's all these like animals
Okay,
all saying,
that's what our next episode can be about, adventures at the
"Zoo
zoo.
animal." Yes, exactly. Yeah, no,
I
that's
have
if you
one.
can do it because zoos don't like it. So
Ugh. I have one
yeah.
last thing I wanted to talk a little bit about. Even we've been talking for a while, but it's all so good. Have you seen the videos of the dogs communicating through those boards with buttons on them that have the words? Isn't
Mhm.
that awesome? What do you think that is like a sign of going on inside the dog's like soul or psyche?
I get relief. I
Oh,
get relief because it's a tool that they can use to communicate with humans. And a lot of the humans who get those things are more practical. So they're more analytical minded. So they're not going to go to an animal communicator. So they're more, yeah, this is what the animal behaviorist says. This is what the zoologists say. They're more in that sort of mathematical, scientific frame of mind, and they're experimenting to see if the animal can communicate through this, that board or whatever it is. And I think the animals are delighted with it. And it's fun for them because it's like a, what do you call it? Enrichment.
yeah.
So it's mentally enriching for them and they're rewarded. So especially dogs. I think cats do those too, don't they? I
I think so.
think I've seen some cats, but I've definitely seen like there was one dog in particular, it was like a sheepdog poodle mix, I think.
Bunny?
Bunny. Bunny was the first one I saw.
Oh,
And I guess Bunny became too self-aware or something. It became depressed. I don't know, but I don't think that most of the dogs seem like that. But I think they like it because they can just do that and go, oh, I get to go for a walk now. Oh, I get a treat. They get rewarded for, picking the right words. And they also are able to increase their vocabulary,
yeah.
which dogs can have a really big vocabulary.
Oh man, I would love to dive into the whole what does that mean becoming self-aware, but I feel we've already been going for
I can't
quite a
answer that.
while. Sorry?
He said, I can't answer that question. That's beyond me. That's more of the animal behaviorist.
Oh, okay. Um, but this has been so wonderful. Thank you so much for this awesome deep conversation. I think it's really going to encourage and bring some more deep thoughts and excitement to people that are just like, what is on the other side out there? What is my animal up to? And just hope, all the hope that comes with that.
Yeah, yeah, because grieving's hard. I mean, it's not like you can bypass it, but at the
Yeah.
same time, the guilt and the shame and all the rest of that is not going to help anybody. That they have to let go of that, and then they can still have that bond with their animal, but they have once they go through that grieving process, and they're healed, then they'll have a more of an open space to like invite that animal back in spirit and actually have it as a spirit guide if they choose to. So
Mm.
yeah, there's life on the other side, is like what I like to say.
Yeah. So boring to think of not when there's just so much magic out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you again. And the way that I end my conversations is I give hugs.
There you go.
Yeah.
Into the cats.
Sorry?
He said into the cats.
Into the cats. Big thanks again to Patricia for sharing, and big thanks to you for listening. This has been the Epic Kate Podcast, and please do the things to support it. Please share it with somebody that you think would just be so enheartened to hear this, and like the video and put it in places that you think people would care to see it, because I'll take all the help I can get. And if you would like to support the work of this channel, I have a PayPal. I know it's not fancy, but it's what I have. And if you feel so like nudged, shall we say, nudged by the universe to support, it would be very much appreciated. So thank you again for watching. I appreciate you. If you leave your comments, I will do my best to respond to them. And if you're still here, please comment, I love animals. Yeah, that'll work. Okay. Thanks. Bye.